It was a somber, gray morning when 10-year-old Jacob arrived at the funeral home. He clutched his violin case tightly as he walked inside, his heart heavy with grief. Just a week ago, his beloved violin teacher, Mr. Andrews, had passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack. Jacob spotted a few familiar faces, fellow students of Mr. Andrews, gathered near the front. He shyly made his way over to them. "Hey Jacob," said Tom, a tall 15-year-old who played the cello. "How are you holding up?" "I'm okay," Jacob replied quietly. Though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. An older woman approached the group of musicians. "We're about ready to start. Please take your seats." The small group silently filed into the row of chairs at the front of the room. Jacob took a seat next to Amy, a talented 13-year-old violinist who he often partnered with for duets. "It's going to be hard getting through this," Amy whispered to Jacob as he settled in. Jacob nodded. "I know," he said, chewing his bottom lip anxiously. A few minutes later, the funeral director stepped up to the podium to officiate. As he spoke about Mr. Andrews' incredible impact as a teacher, Jacob's mind wandered. He remembered the first time he met Mr. Andrews, just 2 years ago. Jacob had been living on the streets with his troubled mother, begging for change and dodging social services. The gift of his violin had come from a kindly older man who took pity on him. Jacob immediately fell in love with the instrument, and spent all his free time practicing on street corners for spare change. One fateful day, Mr. Andrews happened to walk by while Jacob was playing. He was so impressed with Jacob's raw talent that he offered to give him free lessons. For the first time, Jacob felt hope about his future. Mr. Andrews even helped get Jacob into a stable foster home so he could focus on his music. Now, just as Jacob was blossoming into a truly skilled violinist under Mr. Andrews' tutelage, his teacher was gone. He felt the loss deeply. Who would listen patiently as he played new pieces he was working on? Who would gently correct his technique and offer words of encouragement? Jacob was jolted back to the present as the funeral director invited anyone who wished to share memories or offer a musical tribute to come up. Amy turned to Jacob and whispered, "You should play something." Jacob's stomach twisted nervously. But he knew Amy was right. Mr. Andrews deserved a musical farewell from his star pupil. Jacob carefully opened his case, took out his violin and bow, and stepped up to the front on shaky legs. As he began playing the soaring notes of Bach's Violin Concerto in a minor, memories flooded over him. All the times Mr. Andrews had patiently worked with him on a difficult passage, the beaming smile he gave whenever Jacob mastered a new technique, the way he always believed in Jacob, even when Jacob didn't believe in himself. Tears sprang to Jacob's eyes, making the notes swim on the page. But he kept playing beautifully, pouring out his grief and gratitude through his music. As the last notes faded, he finally looked up and saw the audience in tears too. Mr. Andrews would have been proud, he thought. "That was beautiful," Amy said as Jacob sat back down. She squeezed his hand in silent empathy. Jacob wiped his wet eyes and gave her a small, sad smile. It was the most difficult performance of his life, but he was glad he could honor his teacher's memory in the best way he knew how.